But thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for coming back to the Media, Sports, and Leisure panel at track at day 3 of AWE. The panel today is this panel specifically is called Spaces the Story: Ethnographic Storytelling with XR. And I'm really excited because I've actually been bumping into some of these folks for years now. Just kind of watching the evolutions of what the team down at CSU Long Beach is working on. And I think it's really great to see that here we are again. I would like to introduce Julia Beabout from give it to me again. Nova By. That's Nova By. Jazzy Harvey from That Middle Child Productions. And then Scott, yes. Scott,
Here he comes.
Entering the room right now. Scott Wilson, Department of Anthropology at CSU Long Beach.
Those lights are bright.
Yeah, it is really bright.
Take it away.
All right, we'll wait for.
Oh, here he is. It was a little heavy. It was like making it.
Oh,
all
yeah.
over.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, my mic's working. Okay, so welcome to the Spaces the Story: Ethnographic Storytelling with XR. As Ray just said, I'm Scott Wilson from Cal State Long Beach. I'm an anthropologist who dabbles in XR, AR production with students and with community partners. And with us today is Julia Beabout from Nova By. She's the CEO and creative director of Nova By. And we have Jazzy Harvey from That Middle Child Productions, working in the area of VR production. Today's panel is actually about, as the title says, is about ethnographic storytelling. And so as the resident anthropologist, I'll define ethnography in the broadest possible terms. And so to us, I could talk all day about ethnography, but to us that just means telling stories about people, with people, alongside people, and about communities. And so there are a lot of different ways to do that. And so what today's panel is about how can we do that in different ways with emerging XR technologies. Like what are some of the different methods of storytelling? What are some of the differences in the production process? What are some of the challenges? And so the format will be, I will let Jazzy and Julia introduce their work, and then we'll just open it, and I'll be asking them some discussion questions, and we'll go from there. So, and at the end, we will have about 10 minutes for audience Q&As, and so we'd hope that you can engage with us at that point. And so we can start with Jazzy here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a
So Jazz,
controller?
Right
I
where?
think it's on the top right.
On the top.
There.
Oh, is that here? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's right here. Okay.
Okay. What do I
So you just start with
just
hit play. Yeah, hit that one. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
So my name is Jazzy, and there's a lot of tech stuff here today, this weekend. I'm definitely more on the creator side of things. I'm a 360 filmmaker, storyteller, and the film that kind of catapulted me really into the VR space that I did is a film called Built Not Bought. I call it a rhythmic documentary that covers the car culture in South Central Los Angeles. You're on a 24-hour journey through the culture with the guys. We shot this over a couple of months, maybe like 4 months, every night, kind of out in the streets. And it really is a testament to taking the ethnographic method when doing a 360 experiences. You know, a lot of people are into 360 and XR and VR as a way to escape, you know, the world that we live in. But my approach is to kind of showcase the world that we live in a way that makes us want to be here, and especially to preserve spaces that are in danger of not really existing anymore. And I'm a native of South Central Los Angeles, and a lot of the spaces and places that are in this film actually don't even exist anymore. So I am a very big proponent of VR and XR being used as a way for communities to be able to preserve their presence in the physical space, but also the digital space. And so I just have like a little scene that's like the best scene in the whole film. It's 7 minutes long. I can give you guys the link afterwards if you want to see the whole thing, but let's just take a look. If you're watching it in a headset, you know, you see everything around you. You're in the car, you can look up and see the fireworks, the people around you. It's very immersive. This is maybe like the crescendo of the whole film. And I think this is a scene that really makes people want to be there. You know, after this scene, they're like, how can I see this in real life? You know? Goes like this for a couple more minutes, but I'll stop it. But this is I just have like some pictures to share about like my process in the ethnographic method. If anyone's not too familiar with that, it is basically like anthropologists. That's my background, what I studied at Cornell University, and then went to study more with Dr. Scott Wilson here at Cal State Long Beach, is that you're kind of a fly on the wall. And not as much of an active participant. So here, for the months that I was working, you know, with these guys, a big part of it before we even started shooting was just getting to know them. You know, what is kind of the schedule of the day? What is the day-to-day like? And just getting the feel, and also familiarity, because when you are filming in 360 versus flat, like flat you can be far away, you know, you don't really have to interact with the subjects that you're dealing with, but in 360, to get that full authenticity, you have to kind of have the trust of the people that you're filming as well. And so that's what I did, and here's just some more clips of our shooting. It was me. I had a partner who also was a student at Cal State Long Beach, Bree, who was a great cinematographer and capturing a lot of these moments on film that we then combined with our VR film to create a immersive, fully immersive experience. So what we did is take the VR film, and we're like, how can we like really make people feel this? You know, we want people to exit the headset and not only see these types of people that they maybe would never stop and talk to in real life in a different light, but also just be a part of the community. So what we did is we found a car shop, one of the car shops of the subjects, or not subjects, there's a human. So one of the guys in the film, we took his car shop and in 4 days transformed it into a immersive gallery with the photos that we had taken over the months, video playing, we had some flat film, and people were able to watch the film in the headset as well. So as people are immediately walking into the event, they're immersed in the environment, they go in the headset, they're really, you know, kind of in it behind the scenes, and when they come out, they're still there, they're in the community, they're around the people that are in the film, and it just creates that connection that lacks in flat when you just turn off the screen and you don't deal with anyone anymore. So here's just a little bit of our transformation of the car shop before. just our transformation. And before I hand it over to Julia, I'll just end by saying that now, in doing this kind of location-based environment, we discovered that not only does VR have the power to build empathy with people, it also, for communities that feel left out of things, it also can give people a buy-in to their community. So while we're having this event, it was also a fundraiser for the shop that provides classes for troubled youth to learn how to work on cars and have their own automotive business. So I'm just here to say that VR has a lot more possibilities than just working in medical things. Here's Julia.
Great.
All
All right. Well, amazing work.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm hearing myself back a little bit. My name's Julia Biabout. I'm the CEO and creative director at Novaby, as they said, and I'm going to be winging it a little bit here. I didn't realize we were kind of doing a presentation at the beginning, so hopefully you'll just kind of bear with me and go with the flow. I thought what I'd do is just cover some of the projects that we've just completed recently, as well as one of the projects that really kind of got us started in AR. So we're working in mobile phone-based augmented reality, and in particular outdoor world-scale augmented reality, which is kind of a sub-niche in and of itself. And our trajectory, we're a 3D augmented reality studio and 3D content creators. And our trajectory as a company has been a bit different than most other people's in AR. Most people get introduced to AR through social media, the filters and everything that everybody says, and then they maybe work into Unity and then outdoor, maybe start experimenting outdoor. My background prior to getting into augmented reality was in architectural engineering. So I spent 25 years designing buildings, and so I have a real affinity for the built environment, and I just said, we're going outside day one. So our trajectory has been different. We've been working out in outdoor world scale AR for about 4 years now, really before it was, before Pokemon Go was even launched. So we've learned a lot. There's still many challenges, but it's also amazing to see how far the technology and capabilities in terms of creation and technology have come in 4 years. This is a project actually that we started pre-COVID, and so we just launched it finally in August. It's called Live at the Blackhawk. Because I have this affinity for the built environment and the anthropological, I always say I'm a wannabe cultural anthropologist. We tend to like to kind of work with underappreciated spaces. And so what we really specialize in is what's called augmented reality placemaking and space activations and tours. And so we work deeply with communities to help them tell their story and contribute kind of our art, their story, our stories and everything. And so this is actually a project that's in San Francisco in the Tenderloin neighborhood, which many of you might know. Let's see, which is the middle button. The middle button. Oh, there we go, okay. Yeah, so some of you might recognize the Tenderloin. I'm sure there's some folks from San Francisco here. It's generally considered one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging neighborhood in America. This is an area that I've been working in for a number of years. We have a nonprofit there that we work with the community on, connecting them with tech. And so the neighborhood has a very bad reputation, but it has many wonderful things, and we really wanted to help the residents of the neighborhood, particularly the youth, reconnect with those positive elements of the neighborhood and redefine this neighborhood in the public's imagination. This neighborhood has been really integral, actually, to the innovative culture and history of San Francisco, but most people don't see it that way today. And so we worked with the Boys and Girls Club, Tech and the Tenderloin, YMCA, a number of nonprofits to kind of imagine and create this project. And we recreated one of the most historic aspects of the neighborhood. There was a famous jazz club called the Black Hawk Jazz Club that was located there between 1949 and 1965. Today, there is a parking lot there that is filled with needles, alcohol, disposed of human waste, everything. And so, again, kind of rediscovering this area and helping people see the positive side of the Tenderloin. So we recreated the jazz club in 3D full scale and put it in a park that's in the heart of the Tenderloin. This is a very safe space, which is nice so in terms of physicality and security. So you can see it there in the phone. There we go. Here's kind of an in-phone view. And what's on the outside here, we were fortunate that the Black Hawk had billboards on the outside that advertised upcoming acts. And so we worked with local youth to create stories about the history of their neighborhood. And these billboards are actually interactive. So these artworks are by middle school youth at the Boys and Girls Club. And if you tap on them, you'll get stories that they created that they wanted to tell about their neighborhood, past, present, and future. And then you can go inside, and it's more of like a VR or a Pano AR experience once you're inside. And so we recreated all of this from pictures of the original Black Hawk. We also invited local artists working in or with the Tenderloin to create artwork. So what you see there on Billie Holiday, there was created by a local artist. She's an amazing VR artist. She does she creates whole portraits in VR. It's really amazing using tilt brush. And then we also had the Jazz Education Ensemble, which does jazz or education and outreach with youth in the Tenderloin and Bay Area to create a soundtrack for the experience. So this is there. You can go see it. It's there today. We used, this is also a testbed project, part of the Open AR Cloud Association, and this uses a technology or a protocol called Geopose. And so it uses AR cloud technology, so all you need is your phone there. This is a project we just completed in September, launched in September, just an amazing project to be part of. So we worked with Richmond Public Schools, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and Virginia Museum of History and Culture, and about 100 community members over a period of about a year and a half, 2 years. Again, this started pre-COVID, pre-protests. Some of you might recognize Kehinde Wiley's Rumors of War. If you don't know him, he did the portrait of Obama, and he's mostly known for his portraiture. But this was a statue he created and was installed in 2019. And it's installed in one of the most controversial areas in Richmond, Virginia, and really one of the most controversial areas in America. So all of the BLM protests, George Floyd projection art that you saw over the last year or so was actually occurring on Monument Avenue, which is part of this tour. So we worked with the community, actually. We had to completely reimagine the tour and the AR experience because history just changed while we, in the time span that we were working on the project, but it ended up being a much better project. One of the key things that I love about this is that it really shows the power of AR. So as I mentioned, this statue is Kehinde Wiley. He created this statue actually to be in visual conversation with the Jeb Stuart statue that used to stand at the other end of Monument Avenue. It was removed in July of 2020, thank goodness. But his statue lost its visual context. And so what we've done is we recreated the Jeb Stuart statue, which you can see here in the front. And now it's part of this tour that you can take along and see it in its original context. So there's literally no other way to do that than in AR. So this is really exciting. And sorry, I'm trying to advance here. Where am I pointing? Maybe I'm not pointing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. One of the things we did as part of this project is, like I said, we worked with Richmond Public Schools and we created a monument design curriculum to complement a new history curriculum they've done at the school over the last couple of years. And so we worked with the juniors and seniors in that class to design AR monuments that they wanted to see. So you probably recognize in the back that the Lee Circle, so that is where the Robert E. Lee statue used to stand on top of that pedestal and was removed on September 10th. I was fortunate to be there at that time. Literally none of us saw this coming. Like, it was amazing that has been done. And so these statues, they designed them and then we helped them create them in 3D. And these are actually placed in that same area. Once the fencing comes down, we don't exactly know when that'll be, they'll be moved onto the circle, and then the Virginia Museum of Art has said they want to be archiving them. And so this tour is actually part of the curriculum right now, and it'll be part of their class at the beginning of each semester, and each class will create new monuments. And then finally, this is a project that really got us kind of started working in outdoor world scale AR. So this is actually the block that I live and work on in Seattle. Again, it's a very, I'll just say, underappreciated block, but we have many challenges. Pretty much all the challenges we have in America are on full display here on our block. But our block is amazing. I love it. Most people understand it as just a thoroughfare for all the buses and for business, but there's over 2,000 people that live on this block. And so we wanted to kind of redefine this in people's imagination, and it's also one of the most historic blocks in Seattle. And so this is a block scale installation we did around the whole block, and we recreated some of the more positive things where you can see the flags there that was kind of harking back to more positive era on the block. And then these AR murals that we created, the circles that you see there are interactive, so you can tap on those and get additional content. And then we kind of took like a play or staging effect where we recreated certain key elements on the block. So for instance, the building there is one of the original movie theaters, dedicated movie theaters in Seattle, but very few people know that. And so we recreated the original marquee, and so you can, in 3D, so you can walk around and see that. Just here's some other photos. Here's some volunteers that worked on the project. Again, just walking around. We also coupled it with some real-world placemaking activities. And then here, I'll just close with, this is a video, so you can see a little bit of the Black Hawk in action here. Sorry, it's a little bit of promo. Sorry about that. This is how we were getting people to engage with the project. So, how am I doing on time here? Artists there. All right, give that back to you there. All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you for that. So these look like amazing projects, and I'm excited to talk about them. And for me, what I heard, the first thing I'll start with, I heard a lot of stories being pulled out of actual real-world spaces. And to do that, I think one of the primary aspects of XR production is collaboration. And so I'll ask both of you simultaneously, but you don't have to answer together, but how do these technologies that you're working with, how do they change the nature of how do they influence or how do they inform the way that you collaborate with people in your projects?
Yeah.
I think for me, my project could not have been done without the collaboration of the community that I was filming. I mean, not only is it a subculture, it's kind of a hard subculture to tap into. I had to go through like 5 different people before I ended up, meeting the top guys that gave me their blessing and made sure I was safe the whole time, made sure that the camera, the equipment was fine, and that everyone kind of had an idea of what was going on. And a part of my kind of like vetting process to get them to collaborate with me was they were asking like, why do you want to do this? Red Bull, ESPN, like all these other big companies always come to us and want to film us, and film us often, sometimes without our permission. What are you going to do that's different and that's not exploited, does not exploit us? And I told them I'm from where you're from. I want to preserve the things that we grew up with and that we grew up seeing, and we're starting to see, disappear. And it's not for really any financial gain. This is just a matter of cultural preservation. And I feel with VR, it was something new that I came into and didn't see a lot of people that looked like me into it. And it's not a matter of not being interested, it's about access. And I feel like once there's content of different people, that's not just kind of like poverty porn. That's a lot of the content that I was seeing before. They, felt my mission and really just helped the production happen from beginning to end. If we had to do a reshoot or anything like that, they were behind me. And I think in any documentary type of film, you need to have that collaboration, or you'll see it in the lack of authenticity and the lack of connection that the viewer has after they finish viewing your project.
Yeah, I would just echo the same thing. I mean, especially for our AR placemaking projects, and I differentiate a bit between placemaking and space activation. So my perspective is informed by kind of an urbanism and public art perspective. And so placemaking by definition is kind of telling their story. It's enabling the community to tell their story. So really, these projects would not exist without the community. That is the beginning, middle, and end of what's going on. I do think what's interesting, probably the monumental conversations is the most interesting or a great learning process for us because applying AR to these types of projects is new. And so when you come in, I'm sure when you're planning your shots and all of those things, right, you have something in your head, right? You need a starting point. And it was really interesting because the Monumental Conversations was started in 2019, so before COVID, before the protests, before George Floyd's murder. So we had an idea of the story we thought that the community would want to tell, but when we got there and listened to them, it was completely different. And then it changed again once history started changing. And so really responding to that and working with them to create the scripts for the story, and that particular story uses community voices throughout, so they literally have voiced the story themselves, and we wanted to make sure that was the case and really make sure we centered Black resilience. That was really what we heard, is that their first reaction was, we are tired of the stories of oppression. Too much voice has been given to that. And so we want to make sure we're really centering the stories of Black resilience and the stories that have not been told for 150 years. So that was exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really, anthropologists have been working, we talk about this, those of us who work in this, adjacent to XR production, about how we've been doing virtual worlds for over 100 years, right? Because cultures, people build cultures and live in them. And in the case of XR, it seems like that you're taking it a step further and building these virtual worlds with the people. And so my next question is actually about what is it about working in real world spaces that adds to the stories that you're telling alongside the people? We don't like to speak about people, make films about people. We don't make films on people. We make films with people, right? Yeah. We make XR, especially in XR. I think it opens up new avenues. So what do you think the working in real spaces adds to the storytelling?
Do you want to? Okay. We try to follow as best as we can the adage of nothing about us without us. And so I would say equally as important, but because we're doing placemaking, is again, the place is kind of the origin of the story. So as you can see, just using those these projects as an example, the place is the story, and the meaning that's been attached to that. So again, just kind of using a placemaking paradigm, in that paradigm, a place is defined as a space that has meaning that's been attached to it, and that meaning is usually derived from history and culture, and it's certainly imbued to it by people. And so it's about the stories that have been attached or understood to be attached to that space and expanding that narrative. And I think that's to me, the fun and exciting part. I think your work is kind of the same way, is like XR and AR, VR adds the ability to tell these different perspectives at the same time. So kind of a Rashomon kind of approach.
Yeah. Sure. I would definitely have to, second everything that you said. It is always about making it with, them than about them. Because I was like, yay, you guys, like, though I'm from the same, place you're from, like, we still have a lot of differences. Like, I'm not in this car culture like you are. I've just seen it, from the outskirts when I was younger. So I'm going to, like, put the trust in you guys, and you guys are gonna have to trust me to be able to, string, your stories like together in a way that is like beautiful and honest and true to who like everyone is here. But I'm not talking in this. This is your guys' story, your platform.
Exactly. Okay,
so we've covered some of the production aspects about collaboration and using the spaces and things like that. Could either or both of you talk about the challenges of staging them? I know I've messed with location-based things. How do you get people there? With VR, how do you show it to them? Especially this past year with with the pandemic, but even before that, like could you both talk about the challenges of showing your work? Like, where do these things live?
I think that's the hardest part with VR, especially because it's not necessarily like just as accessible from your phone. The film I put up on YouTube, so everyone who is involved in the film can share it and watch it as much as they want. But of course, they're not as immersed in it because it's just on the phone. So what we have been doing pre-pandemic, when we could gather, was we had pop-ups where we would show it at a place like within the community that people can access, and it was free. So the first one that we did, we had like maybe over like 100 people over like the first couple hours, and then the one we did the next year, which I showed, and we turned out that car shop, it was like hundreds over a weekend just coming in to put on the headset and try things, after they watch it. They're like, what else can I watch? What else can I do? Where can I get one of these? And I think, though the biggest challenge is getting people to experience it, I think it's kind of like the most important part of the production is, okay, now I've made this wonderful thing. How can I make sure everyone can see it,
Right. No, I agree. It's particularly for mobile AR, like it's there, but it's invisible, right? And so there's a few things that we're always learning on this, and we're not marketers, so but that I've learned to really appreciate. That is a big part of getting people to engage. So we're creating these stories. The communities are creating these stories. We're doing it because we want people to hear them and they want to share them. And so if you're not able to kind of complete that cycle, then granted there's a lot of learnings and wonderful relationships that are built just from the project itself, but we're certainly doing it to get it out there in the world. There's a few things that we've learned. One is at this point where we are in terms of AR technology, it is possible to create a completely invisible experience with no physical markers whatsoever. We do still tend to use physical markers because they help people realize something is there. And so having some physical aspect to your project is still really key. We frequently use ground stickers or something like that. So they might not actually be target triggers, but we're still integrating them into the project. And I think a couple years from now, when people's minds will be different, they'll think, oh yeah, let's pick up our phone and figure out what's here. But right now, that's not a natural reaction. So you need to clue them in somehow. The other thing is we've learned it's really key to have a launch, some sort of launch event. And so for what we're doing, since we're working with communities, it's usually around something they've already got going on. But if not, finding somebody that can be a stakeholder that is as passionate about this subject maybe as you are, whatever your story is, and that is going to want to be part of an event or something to help launch it. And then they also become very important for maintaining or sustaining the event. I think that's the other big challenge is you can launch it, but then keeping that engagement, and especially ours tend to be there indefinitely or for extended periods of time, and the idea is that people do use them throughout its existence. And so that can be really key. So again, Monumental Conversations is probably the best example of that the fact that it's been integrated into their history curriculum and they're going to be using it every semester helps. The museums there in that area have also all taken it on. So finding partners like that can create and sustain engagement with it are really key. And then also help evolve it too. I think that's the great thing about XR is these things, you can continually change and evolve these things. So.
Okay, yeah, you're touching on something like that leads to the next question.
Okay.
And one of the things I if I were to, insert myself into this conversation, just about access to technology in some ways. And so that would be one of my answers to the next question I'm about to ask you, that sometimes it's difficult to show the people in the communities that we're making films about because they may not have 5G phones. They may not have access to VR technology except when you're there, right, to headsets. I mean, we take our quests out into the community, but, how do they have access to it outside of that? So that's one thing I would be looking for in the future. And so my question is, we're here at AWE with a lot of designers and engineers and developers and things. What would you want to see moving forward to help tell these kinds of stories? Like if we were talking to the people who are developing the technologies, what would you want to look for moving forward to tell these kinds of stories?
I think one problem that I don't think anyone has solved yet is the problem with the head strap on a lot of the headsets. And for a lot of Black women, Black men, Black hair, dreadlocks, natural hairstyles, those the headsets, they just don't really work. And no one has found a solution to that. And I ask, why is that? It's like, of course, there must not be someone who experiences that problem that's in the development room. So I think the step, or what I hope these tech developers do, is have more variety of people in the room in the development of the product. Because if the product isn't made for someone, I mean, people of color have for years found ways to make things, be made for them, but it would be nice if in this new realm of technology that these considerations were put into place at the development.
I know someone working on that.
Yeah.
One of my colleagues at Cal State Long Beach is actually starting a movement for Ebony Utley in communications. Is working on that very problem. I just had a conversation with her about a year ago because there's that issue of fitting the headset. So.
I love that. Well, so yeah, that's great. Our situation's a bit different because we're relying on phones that really, it's surprising, almost everybody has, even down to homeless people on the street at this point. And so we are just very cognizant and intentional about making sure that our experiences are doable on as many phone types as possible. Good. So for us, 5G is an enhancement, and when you're getting to projects of the scale like Black Hawk, where you're bringing in a whole building, downloading a whole building, 5G really helps. But all of our experiences are workable on 4G, and and in terms of moving forward, I think I see a number of my colleagues here, from OARC, and just kind of expanding OIRC is doing a lot of great work making sure that the AR cloud is open and interoperable, and that privacy is a real protected. So I think, just more of the same. It makes it more accessible and safer for more people to use. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so this 5 minutes, is this for us to discuss, or is it time for Q&As?
That's the rest of your discussion.
Oh, okay, this is the rest of our time. Okay, so thank you. Another question, another issue that comes up a lot in XR content development, which is what we're focusing on here, is that when you're telling these kinds of stories, you're involving the space, you're collaborating with people. By nature, these stories are interactive, right? Whether it's VR or AR or any other platform that you're using, there are going to be instances where people miss part of what the story that you're telling. So how do you deal with that in the planning and the staging of it, and when you put on an event? How do you deal with the idea, with the situation in which someone's going to miss part of what you're trying to show them? It's inevitable, and I have my students try to have ways of, try to give them, I try to show them ways of dealing with it, but how do you deal with it in your own projects?
Yeah.
I think with our project, we kind of circumvented that with the use of audio and audio placement. So if someone were, looking more to their left, we would, in the post-editing, place the audio on the right ear. So it would kind of, even if they were looking away, they would be kind of naturally inclined. For example, like if a fire truck was passing you by, you would, turn around and look at that. So by, playing around with the placement of the audio, and just by having kind of the same people who are in all the scenes, but placed in different parts, it kind of made people want to look around and not just, stare at one person or one thing the whole time.
Yeah, interesting. I would say definitely a challenge. It's something we have to plan for. I would say the stories that we're telling are maybe a bit different in that we kind of take a module approach, and they're lots more of a collection of stories. Yeah. So there's a few things that we've learned is we frequently use like a two-tier story structure. So what we find is that there's what I call AR time. So like 1 minute in AR will feel like 7 minutes in the real world. And so it's not so much their attention span is shorter, it's more that it just feels much longer. Their patience is shorter. And so we've really learned that we have to keep our stories to, about 2 minutes, or people will abort. And so what we've done is we've gone to a two-tier structure where there's frequently like a 30-second to 45-second story kind of intro. And then if they want to go deeper, they can choose to do that by tapping on something. And then that's maybe where the 2-minute story lives. So that if they just want to engage quickly, they're kind of at least getting the overall narrative arc with those 30-second clips. And then they can go deeper. The other thing, but it is very common for people to just skip stories. And so if there's a certain point that that the community wants to make sure gets shared, we're trying to make sure we construct a story within each module that is making that point the same, but in different ways, so that they kind of get these lessons learned multiple ways. And again, it might be a little bit different that we're really trying to, in what we do, we're creating stories, but trying to introduce the viewer, listeners, users to new information that surprises them. So. Okay.
Yeah, we talk about it as if it's, it's a hallway. We think of it as a museum of natural history, right? Well, they have evolution mapped out, but then you have hallways that you can go down to explore more. But if they just walk down the hallway, they'll get the gist of the story, but the more you explore, the more you learn. Right. And actually that's, it's a good place to end it. I think we're running a little out of time here, but, we could talk about, just the value of having people do work, right? In VR, you have to find things, you have to look around. In AR, with place-based AR, they have to do things. And could you talk just very briefly about what's the value in having people do things, having people work? Yeah. So it's not a passive media. Neither one of these are passive media, right?
Right.
I think it gives someone, the viewer, a buy-in, instead of, watching on a TV and you're texting and you're doing all these things at one time, like when you're in like an immersive virtual experience, like you want to be there and you want to be able to like have some type of input in the situation. And I think that's what keeps people coming back, because they'll be like, okay, I did this one time, but like, let me like look this way this time, or let me do this other time. And they always discover new things, and that just expands their own curiosity about the field.
Yeah, I love that curiosity. That's great. So I would say what we focus on is more doing kind of work, like imaginative work, right? So again, this is just like me personally, but I find, reading a book or watching a stage play to be equally, if not more immersive than a movie. And that's because it's requiring me to, like you said, buy in, right? It's requiring my imagination to do some work to be present in this story. And so that's really kind of the approach we take, is we're looking to engage people's thinking and imagination to create the sense of immersion, as opposed to just visual or interactions. So.
I always find that it's, give them choices and give them stakes. Like, choices have consequences. They should. Otherwise, why are they making choices?
Yeah.
So I guess we're...
We've got time for one, maybe two questions, if there's any questions in the audience. Just feel free to line up here. I think we'll get two of you, all right?
Keep in mind, we really can't see people.
Hi.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
so
see
bright.
anything.
Hi. I want to preface this question by saying both the projects from Julia and Jazz were fantastic.
Thank you.
I thought they were really powerful. That said, if you could do it again, is there anything that you might want to do differently? I'm just, again, really fantastic. No criticisms here, but I am wondering, what are your own criticisms of your work? What would you wish you could have done differently?
I think if I were to do it differently, I know so much more now than I did when I was doing this. This was like my premiere project, my foot just getting wet into VR, so it was just a lot of trial and error. But I think I would definitely, and we've been thinking of kind of doing a remake of this, but having more interactivity in it, where people can, in a way, kind of choose their own adventure. And I think that would really take it to the next level.
Yeah, I would say we learn on every single project, particularly process, I think. Yeah, so I would say I've learned a lot more about community engagement and how to do that, and trust, like you said, is just, it's essential. And building that trust, but really working with local community people to, that have that trust already, and really building those relationships with those people. I would say the other thing is I've come to a much better appreciation about how long these projects really take. And a lot of that is not so much like the development time or the art creation time, it's building these relationships and, discovering the stories and working with them to construct those. So I went from, the first project we created took us 6 weeks, which was crazy. Don't ever try that again. To Monumental Conversations took us, we've been engaged with the community for 1.5 years. And I would say I've really kind of come to appreciate that these kind of projects where you have the community involvement are definitely 1 year long. And so you need to plan for that.
Yeah. One idea. Is there something that I miss in that space? Is there are no humans. And if I go to a jazz club, I am looking for interesting characters to talk with. Mm-hmm. So maybe I know it's very difficult to create human models, but I will focus on that to create a more engaging experience, and even include other users, other players in the same environment, so that you are basically competing with each other to solve some kind of mystery, to find who killed someone else, or who, not exactly that, but have some kind of engaging multiplayer experience where you talk with an NPC and there is some kind of a small quest. That I believe will make it much more interesting for people to engage with that kind of experience.
do you
Can
wanna-
Can I?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of the VR documentaries in the similar genre to what Jazzy's film does. They do feature people, but you lose some of the interactivity. I think with these two projects in particular, I think what your question, which is a very good question actually, which is a very important point. I think it points to the importance of the real world aspect of it, about how these projects, we call it materiality in anthropology, about how where these projects live, and one of the points of them is to make you engage with people who are actually there
Yes,
in the
exactly.
real world. So
Right.
I'm learning about the jazz club, I'm learning about the history, but that makes me talk to the people who are there when I take the headset off. That's
Yeah.
what we tend to factor that into design in some ways, like Jazzy and your collaborators doing the events, right? It's to get you to come there. It's to get you to know the place where you are. If that
And the people you're with.
and the people you're with, yeah.
So I don't disagree with you, and especially for the Black Hawk project, that was one of the feedbacks we got, is like, wouldn't it be cool to have like a avatar, a bartender in there, and that would be definitely like a V2. A lot of it was just, budget constraints or, time and technical, quite frankly, at this point. So, but V2, but, really what, and again, this is just our personal preferences about what the goals are with our projects. It's about connecting people that you're with, not about connecting with them, with the virtual people in the space. And that's one of the things that I love about mobile AR is we've been doing quite a bit of user observation, obviously just for research and lessons learned. But on average, as an example, like we did a Christmas installation a year ago in Westlake Park. And in contrast to kind of more typical tech where one download of an app or something equals one user, we were generally seeing on average 3 people standing around sharing a phone and looking at it together. Sometimes it was 4, sometimes it was 5, but 3 was kind of like a minimum. And so again, it just kind of depends on what your goals are. We're focused on that moment at that time as opposed to connecting with somebody remotely or something like that.
These projects have one foot in the metaverse, but never
Yeah.
both feet.
Yeah, we're
Right?
exactly. I
We
would
don't
agree.
want both feet in the metaverse.
Right. That's yeah. In fact, that's what we're like. One of our main goals is to reconnect people with these physical environments using digital content. So.
And if I could add one thing for the future of the technology, I would say adding digital things to live video. I want that to be easier. So if there are any designers, if there are any developers out there, like that's something I'd be interested in. But yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. It's exciting to see how these are like living time capsules of different times. So it's really exciting to see. I mean, Jazzy, I saw your experience. I know 4 years ago now, and it's neat to again run into you again in this panel and see how we're talking about it still. It shows how important this content is. Why don't we give them all another hand for what an incredible
Great.
panel?
Thank you.